we just watched in Las Vegas in the main event. Curtis Blaydes, Colorado's own Curtis Blaydes out of Elevation Fight Team, unfortunately get knocked out by Derek Lewis, the Black Beast, in the second round via KO. Derek Lewis ends up landing the right uppercut to Curtis Blaydes. Curtis Blaydes goes out cold. Derek Lewis ends up landing 2 unnecessary shots, right hands from the top onto the already unconscious Curtis Blaydes, and Herb Dean ends up stopping the fight in the second round. Obviously, a crazy interaction that we just saw live from Vegas at the UFC Apex facility. I'm going to try to put a link up on here. We're having some technical difficulties, but it looks like we're back on. We'll end up putting the link where you guys could actually chime in here on the show and then give us your thoughts on whether it's the prelims or the main card or even the co-win main event as well. So let me put that on there real quick. Get that there. Let's see. Copy. And then this feature is pretty cool because you could basically chime in and join me on the video to be able to do this. So let's see if I can get this to go. Let's see. Okay. Yep, there we go. So the stream should be going right now, but we'll end up just talking about how everything worked out on the show tonight. We had a couple technical difficulties in the pre-fight show that was at 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time today, right before the fight started. We ended up having a great interview with the legendary Burt Watson, and unfortunately, we were supposed to air the interview that we did with Cody Donovan, who was the coach and cornerman of the main event fighter Curtis Blaydes, but we were unable to do it. So now we're going to do it here once we get done talking about the fights and having everybody chime in and stuff. So let me make sure everything is working on there as far as getting the link going. Looks like the link's going. So hopefully, basically all you guys have to do is click on the link. It'll ask you to use your video and also your audio. And once you do that, then you'll pop up on my screen, and then I'll be able to chime you guys in and just talk about the fights. But in the meantime, my name is Travis Single. Ryan Smith is our news editor. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go over to Ryan and he'll tell you about some of the news stories that happened this week. And then we'll chime back in and we'll talk about the fights. We'll run down all the prelims, main card, the co-main event, and the main event. And then we'll go off to Cody Donovan's interview that we conducted earlier this week. So hold on one second.
This is Ryan Smith with Shell Shock MMA, providing you guys with the news for the week. Earlier this week, we found out Kazmat Chimaev has pulled out of his March 13th main event versus the number 3 ranked Leon Edwards. Replacing him will be Belal Muhammad, who is coming off of a decision win at UFC 258 over Diego Lima. Just found out tonight, May 8th, we will get a potential number 1 contender spot in the women contenders fight in the women's bantamweight division between the former UFC bantamweight champion Holly Holm and the Ultimate Fighter winner Juliana Pena. Rumored for UFC 261, Thug Rose Namajunas challenging Weili Zhang for the UFC Strawweight Championship. The original plan was for that fight to take place in China, but from the sounds of it, it looks like that fight will be moved to Vegas. Former UFC bantamweight Brian Caraway has been charged with 4 felony charges from a 2018 case involving an alleged thief of an ATV from his ex-girlfriend Misha Tate. Brian has been charged with fraud, first-degree attempted theft, filing a false insurance claim on the ATV, and making a false statement on a vehicle title.
Well, thanks very much, Ryan Smith, for the news. Obviously, huge news coming out last night was that Holly Holm, former UFC bantamweight champion, will be taking on Juliana Pena, who actually fought here in Colorado just a couple years ago. And so that'll be a great fight and possibly the next contender for Amanda Nunes's belt. So we'll see what happens in a couple weeks. We're going to see Amanda Nunes defend her belt against Megan Anderson. So that'll be a great fight as well, where you have an incredible card coming up in just 2 weeks. Next week, we'll be doing a pre and post fight show as well. We'll have several guests. We'll just say one of them's definitely going to be on the card and maybe even 2 of them. So, but that main event for next Saturday night is going to be between Cyril Gahn and also Jairzinho Rosenstrike. So that's going to be another great heavyweight battle. And also it could be a way that we could possibly see Derek Lewis's next opponent after Derek Lewis ends up getting the knockout victory tonight over Curtis Blaydes. He ends up getting the uppercut KO victory, 126 in round number 2 over a very game opponent in Curtis Blaydes, who was really doing a great job and not, setting up the takedown right off the bat. He did a lot of great leg kicks that kind of chop Derek Lewis down to size, and he landed a lot of great shots, but also he landed an accidental eye poke, and it looked to be even a possible eye poke in the second round, and Herb Dean, the referee, ended up basically saying that it was a slap instead of an eye poke, and it seemed to piss off Derek Lewis off, because not only did he knock out Curtis Blaydes unconscious, he landed 2 unnecessary right hands on the ground. And then also he did a basically a suck it, chop basically to I don't know if it was the corner of Curtis Blaydes, but definitely to Curtis Blaydes as he was laying unconscious on the octagon floor. So it was pretty over the top for Derek Lewis, but it's not surprising. It's a thing that Derek Lewis has done most of his career. He wasn't happy with the eye pokes for sure. He made a comment of, "Oh, this is Herb Dean's eye pokes," and I don't know if he did the chop to Herb Dean, but I guess we'll find out later on in the post-fight press conference with Derek Lewis coming up here within probably about 30 minutes or so. So basically, ends up getting the KO victory over Curtis Blaydes, fighting out an Elevation Fighting team here in Denver, and then we'll go down the prelims card and basically see if we can get some people to chime in on here. Hopefully we'll be able to get some comments and stuff in. I'm not seeing anything yet, but you just never know. People will be able to pop up whenever they can. Let's see. In the prelims, we started off in the heavyweight division, where everything was on the ESPN Plus streaming platform. So basically, if you had the ESPN Plus subscription, you were able to view it tonight. And if you guys haven't got the ESPN Plus, usually the best deal is if you're a Hulu fan or Disney Plus fan and you want to get ESPN, there's usually a bundle package that you guys could get with ESPN Plus, Disney Plus, and Hulu. So definitely check that out if you guys haven't done it, to be able to watch the fights at home too. So, or pretty much find out a way, whether you watch it at Buffalo Wild Wings. There's a lot of places you could basically see it if you really wanted to. So, but tonight started in the heavyweight division. You had Sergey Spivak versus Jared Vanderaa. Spivak ends up defeating Jared Vanderaa via TKO ground and pound, 4 minutes and 32 seconds of round number 1. Spivak has a lot of experience, especially outside of the octagon as well. So it was definitely a odds-on favorite to get the victory, and he didn't take much time to get that victory at all. So he did a great job tonight. Moving on to the second prelim of the night, we had a catchweight bout because of Draco Rodriguez missing weight yesterday morning. So it was a catchweight of 140.5 pound fight between Draco Rodriguez and Amen Zahabi. So Draco Rodriguez not only loses, but he ends up giving 30% of his purse to Amen Zahabi as well. So Draco Rodriguez, or Amen Zahabi, defeats Draco Rodriguez via KO punch 3 minutes and 5 seconds into round number 1. So take a little bit of time, but not only does Amen Zahabi go in with a show paycheck, he gets a win bonus, and as well as 30% of Draco Rodriguez's purse to move in. Now the craziness kind of starts from there. What ended up happening next is we were supposed to have Jamal Emmers versus Chad Skelly, but Jamal Emmers ended up suffering back spasms in the back right before he was about ready to walk out to be able to fight Chad Skelly. So that fight was canceled. And oddly enough, we had one more fight that got canceled literally a couple hours before the event was even starting, as we had Drakkar Klose, one of his cornermen, ended up testing positive for COVID-19. So they shut down that fight with Luis Pena. Luis Pena obviously upset on social media, even wanted to possibly face Chaz Kelly, and told Dana to basically put the fight on hold for like an hour and see if he could possibly still fight him in the prelims or maybe even the main card. But obviously that didn't happen. And And at the end of the day, I think really the commission makes those decisions. It ain't going to be Dana White anyway. So instead of going with Chaz Kelly and Jamal Emmers, he ends up going to Colorado's own Shanna Dobson in a women's flyweight fight, and she takes on the undefeated Casey O'Neill. Casey O'Neill, a Scottish fighter that's fighting out of Australia. She was born and raised in Scotland and moved to Australia at the age of 10, and then basically has fought in some of the promotions in Australia, carried a 5-0 record into the fight with Colorado's own Elevation Fight Team's own Shanna Dobson. Pretty even fight in the first. And then in the second, Casey O'Neill stays undefeated at 6-0 as she defeats Shanna Dobson via TKO, grounded pound, 3 minutes and 41 seconds of round number 2. Then we end up going to a prelim fight of 2 former Ultimate Fighter contestants, as we had Nate Landwehr versus Julian Erosa in a featherweight fight in the prelims. Back and forth. These guys scrapped from the get-go of the opening round, and it just seemed like one of them was going to get put to sleep, and you just never knew what was going to happen. So Julian Erosa ends up landing the jumping knee KO or TKO to Nate Landwehr. 56 seconds of round number 1 to get the victory. Nate looked definitely dazed, and he looked like he was definitely out in after the flying knee by Erosa, but he quickly also held on to the other leg of Erosa, possibly going for a takedown. So some people were complaining of an early stoppage, but at the end of the day, the ref stopped the fight. Julian Erosa gets the TKO victory over Nate Landwehr. 56 seconds of round number 1. Next prelim fight, we ended up going to the bantamweight division as former number 1 contender Eddie Wineland ended up taking on John Castaneda. And Castaneda ends up getting the victory over what a lot of people are, not only veteran, but a lot of people have really high thoughts on Eddie Wineland, where Eddie Wineland has fought some of the best in the world, not only on the UFC tier, but also before he was even in the UFC as well, and also a former WEC champion. So John Castaneda ends up defeating Eddie Wineland via TKO punches, 4 minutes and 41 seconds of round number 1. And basically, John Castaneda ends up giving a lot of praise to Eddie Wineland as far as being a true veteran in the sport, and a lot of praise and a lot of respect for the former number 1 contender and the former WEC champion at one time as well. So we move on to would be the last prelims on the card, and we had a catchweight bout of 150 pounds. It was supposed to be a featherweight fight between Jared Gordon and Danny Chavez. Jared Gordon ends up missing weight on Friday morning and ends up getting 30% of his purse taken away from him and giving it straight to Danny Chavez. Luckily, Jared Gordon ends up defeating Danny Chavez pretty easily, all 3 rounds. Only one judge gave it 29-28. So we had a unanimous decision victory of Jared Gordon over Danny Chavez, 30-27, 30-27, and 29-28. Pretty much dominant for Jared Gordon. Unfortunately, he's going to have to take a little chunk in the fight purse tonight. So at least he'll go on with the fight bonus as well. So we ended up opening up the main card with former UFC heavyweight champion Andrei Arlovski in the heavyweight fight versus rising British superstar Tom Aspinall. Aspinall starts out strong, almost ends up finishing the fight late in the first round against Arlovski. Arlovski survived, ends up landing a nice left hook onto Aspinall early in the second round. But basically, Tom Aspinall gets the takedown on the former UFC heavyweight champion Arlovski up against the cage. And just as Arlovski turns his neck to try to get up off of his butt to basically get onto his feet and look to strike again, Tom Aspinall sinks in a rear naked choke, and quickly Andrei Arlovski tops out. Andrei Arlovski's been fighting for over a decade, and it's damn near coming close to 2 actually, and just some of the longtime fights of Arlovsky's career, and it looks like I don't know how much more fights he's ended up going to take, and it's almost, it's starting to look like he could possibly be the next gatekeeper as far as just these up and comers. It's almost whether they can go through Arlovsky is a stepping stone, unfortunately, to Andre Arlovsky these days, when you had guys like Tom Aspinall and Francis Ngannou and stuff, people along the way. So we'll see what Andre Arlovsky ends up doing with his career. My guess is he probably doesn't have too many fights left on his contract, so we'll just have to wait and see what Dana thinks. Obviously, Dana White, the president of the UFC, doesn't like seeing a lot of the older guys basically chiming in and basically taking a lot of damage late in their careers, and they really want them to hang it up. Whether or not they actually hang it up instead of going to Bellator and some of these other promotions is up to the fighter. But I think Dana White tries to clear a lot of these guys off their conscience to be able to possibly retire and enjoy the money that they made over their career, and don't get any more brain damage, unfortunately, what they've already sustained throughout their career in the UFC. So we'll see what happens with Andre Arlovsky, but you just never know. Another huge win for Tom Aspinall as he'll move up the rankings, hopefully in the heavyweight division. So the next fight on the main card was a middleweight fight between Phil Haas and Nasruddin Imavov. And Imavov ended up doing really good. There was a lot of times that Phil Haas was basically dazed, and he was getting a lot of punishment on the feet, and he ends up getting a couple of takedowns and stuff and kind of keeping the fight somewhat on the ground, or at least up against the cage. But Imavov ends up just landing huge shots after shots, and especially in the third round. And some judges actually gave Nasruddin a 10-8 round for two of the judges, but Phil Haas ends up surviving not only the fight, but also from not getting knocked out by Nasruddin. So Phil Haas survives and defeats Nasruddin Imavov versus majority decision. So 28-28, 29-28, and 29-28. So he decides to go the route of just basically inking out the decision, but he showed a lot of heart tonight, where it looked like there was a couple times where the ref could have possibly stopped the fight and then could have put a bad notch into Phil Haas' career, but he ends up finishing the unanimous decision victory. So it was nice to see. Next fight on the main card was a heavyweight fight between Alexei Oleinik versus Chris Daukaus. Chris Daukaus. And Chris Daukaus, his brother, actually fights in the UFC as well. So it was nice to see them warming up in the background before Chris ends up taking the fight. Alexei Oleinik, he was actually landing some bombs and right off from the get-go, and it looked like it was going to be a striking. And then Alexei Oleinik ended up trying to put Chris up against the cage and trying to go for submission holds, but obviously Chris knew exactly what he was doing. He pretty much fended off the left arm that he was trying to grab from the cage to try to take him down for a possibly key lock, or he likes Ezekiel chokes. A lot of the submissions that Alexei goes for. It was a 75th fight in his pro career. Absolutely incredible. So Alexei Oleinik ends up getting basically dropped from there and then ended up finishing. So Chris Daukaus ends up defeating Alexei Oleinik versus via TKO punches, 155 of round number one. So that's a great step for Chris Daukaus. Alexei, obviously, with 75 pro fights on his career, you just never know what he'll end up doing with his career, or how many times Dana White will allow him to even fight in the UFC, just because of his long career that he's had. Pretty much the second to the biggest upset of the night ends up there is actually quite a bit of upset, especially towards the end. So we ended up having the next fight was featherweight fight between Charles Rosa versus Derek Minner. Derek Minner ends up getting the decision victory. He ends up really just dominating, whether it was standing or it was on the ground. So, but he ends up getting the decision victory over Charles Rosa, 30-26, 30-27, and 29-27 to be the underdog to start off the fight, and he ends up getting the victory. So it was a great win by Derek Minner, and we'll see what his next test will be after this great victory of Charles Rosa. It wasn't a huge upset just because Derek Minner was only a plus 100. So it's not really a huge upset when you're only plus 100. But still, either way, if somebody took a chance on them, they ended up getting a good victory. The second to biggest upset of the night was Yana Kunitskaya in the co-main event. And she was in a catchweight 138-pound fight against Ketlin Vieira. Ketlin Vieira ends up losing 20% of her purse to Yana Kunitskaya for missing weight on Friday morning. So she ends up Ketlin Vieira, unfortunately, with the loss, she gets 20%, or not only does she lose the fight, but she ends up giving 20% of her purse to Yana Kunitskaya. So it was great overall fight. It looked to be back and forth. I think the big eye opener for the judges was Kunitskaya being on top towards the end of the third round, and she ends up landing a huge right elbow onto already a downed Ketlin Vieira and busts her open right above Ketlin Vieira's right eye. She was gushing out blood, and then she ended up having a hematoma on the left side of her, or right above the eyebrow of her left eye of Ketlin Vieira. So she was pretty much damaged and bloody, finishing out the fight, and it probably got into the heads of the judges as well. So Yana Kunitskaya with the second biggest upset of the night, as she defeats Ketlin Vieira via unanimous decision, 29-28 on all cards. So definitely a close fight with the judges, but at the end of the day, Yannick Kunitskaya ends up getting the job done. So that's what it all comes down to. And then she ends up getting 20% of Vieira's purse as well. So we move on to the main event. If you guys just tuning in, main event was a heavyweight fight between Colorado's own Elevation Fight Team, Curtis Blaydes, and he was taking on Derek Lewis, straight out of Houston, Texas. Obviously, with all the stuff going down in Texas this week, he was pretty concerned with a lot of his family members and the power going off and everything. So it was definitely a difficult and weird training camp for Derek Lewis. But Derek Lewis ends up getting the KO victory over Curtis Blaydes, 126 of round number 2. Curtis Blaydes does a great job landing really great right leg kicks to Derek Lewis's lead left leg to start the first round. He even landed a couple in the second, and then landed some great left jabs to Derek Lewis as well. Ended up seemed like he was headhunting a lot, where Derek Lewis, I think, was expecting Curtis Blaydes to take him down right away, and he really didn't. So he basically just set him up right from the beginning. So Curtis Blaydes ends up giving some damage to Derek Lewis. Unfortunately, they ended up having a legal eye poke by Curtis Blaydes to Derek Lewis late in the first round. Derek Lewis wasn't a big fan of that. Let Herb Dean know about it, so they stopped the fight. Ends up having a second time where they ended up having a possible eye poke early in the second round, but Herb Dean basically shrugged it off and said it was a slap, not an eye poke. And basically, Curtis Blaydes ends up going for a takedown early in the second round. Derek Lewis catches him with the right uppercut to drop Curtis Blaydes to the ground unconscious. And then, as Curtis Blaydes was unconscious on the UFC floor, Derek Lewis rains down 2 unnecessary right hands to Curtis Blaydes' unconscious body. He gets up, does the typical Black Beast, kind of throws him down throws him down and does his little pose that he normally does, and then he gets up and basically does like a DX suck it, basically chop to either it was Herb Dean or it was to either the corner of Curtis Blaydes or possibly even Curtis Blaydes. But he made a comment of saying, "Oh, it's Herb Dean's eye poke," after he gave the chop to whoever he was doing it to. So Curtis Blaydes ends up getting a horrible knockout loss, but the guy's literally turned 30 years old this week. So we'll just wait and see how his career develops. There's so many guys in the heavyweight division in the top 10 and the top 15 that you just never know who could fall down. Derek Lewis was asked about what he was kind of planning in his next fight coming up, and his mouth, the person that came out of his mouth was John Jones to start off, but then he basically said that he didn't like Russian, so maybe he'll go after Stipe next. So Stipe Miocic will defend his belt on March 27th against Francis Ngannou. It'll be the second bout between Francis Ngannou and Stipe, as Stipe actually ended up defeating Francis Ngannou a couple years back at Madison Square Garden to basically hold on to his title, which Francis Ngannou looked to be the future of the heavyweight division, but Stipe put a stop to that. So we'll see. Dana White basically confirmed a couple weeks ago that John Jones will face the winner of Stipe Miocic and Francis Ngannou coming up here on March 27th. So we'll see where Derek Lewis lays in the fold, but we'll also see what happens with Cyril Gahn, and then also Jairzinho Rosenstrike main event next Saturday night. So we'll just have to wait and see how everything goes up. See if we got anybody want to chime in on the fights. Technical difficulties tonight, so you just never know what's happening or if anybody's coming in, but doesn't look like anybody's coming in. So what we'll do is we'll end the night. We'll have a pre-fight show next Saturday afternoon, and then we'll tell you guys all on social media exactly when that's going to happen, and also who our guests are going to be for the pre-fight show. And then we'll try to have a guest on for the post-fight show too. We'll just never know who we can grab and who would be able to do an interview with us so late at night. So we appreciate you guys watching and possibly staying up and watching live for us. But now we're going to turn it over to Cody Donovan's interview that we ended up doing on Wednesday, where he was actually in Vegas with Curtis Blaydes. So we'll do the interview and then just go from there. So let's see here. Okay, we'll go this. Ends up playing Cody interview. Okay, now this is the interview with Cody Donovan. Special shout out to Cody Donovan for the interview, and it's also his birthday today. So happy birthday to Cody Donovan, and here's part one of his interview with me on Wednesday night. You guys, we're joined by Cody Donovan, coach of, I guess, a couple of fighters coming up this Saturday night. How you doing, bud?
Yeah, great, bro. Great. We just had a good shakeout over at the UFC PI for Curtis, and now we're just relaxing back at the Teen Hotel.
Yeah, exactly. I bet you a lot of fun. I'm guessing you're hitting the Strip and everything else on your way.
Man, they stick us in this hotel. We can't get out.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm actually in the exact same room that I was in 2 weeks ago for Alistair.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course that's how it goes too. So how's Shauna and Curtis doing?
Yeah, everybody's great, man. Good camps. Shauna's got a great squad out here. She's got Aaron Porter, Sean Madden, Valor Cavalera. They're all with her. They hit the PI a little bit earlier than us today. And then, me and Vinny obviously have done all the coaching for Curtis. Yeah. Curtis brings a couple of training partners out too. Austin Hubbard is out here. Nice. Zach's out here. It's good.
I saw on Austin's Instagram that he's got a fight announcement coming up, so can't wait for that. So, now how's that usually work?
A lot of the guys that Vinny and I work with are managed by Lloyd at Vayner Group, and we have just have great communication with him. So he'll send us the matchup, we look it over, we talk back and forth. He'll have the kind of business perspective of like, hey, how is this tactically a good matchup for where we're at in our career? Mm-hmm. And I think we get that part of it too. And then we'll study the opponent and just make a decision. And we looked at this one, we like it. We think it's a good fight for Austin. I can't say who it is yet, but yeah, I'm excited about it.
Nice. Now, how does that usually work out as far as like deciding the opponent and stuff? Is it just kind of like a wrestler striker? Do you usually let the agent pick or Austin, or is it just really depends on what you guys like on the matchups when you check video?
I mean, so usually Vinny and I will choose, right? Mm-hmm. There are definitely situations where you don't get to choose, right? The UFC can tell you, hey, this is who you're fighting or you're not fighting, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But we still, like some saying, especially for a guy like Austin, right? Curtis we don't get any say for Curtis. He's at that point where it's like, hey, this is who you're fighting next, and then we're making more game plan and strategy decisions. Mm-hmm. But for Austin, we're trying to, we want him to be able to go out there and showcase. I mean, his last time out, he just had a little bit of a brain fart, kind of got started slow and had a bad night, but if you look at the fight for that where he fought Max and just destroyed him,
It was the opposite. Yeah.
just couldn't answer the bell, right? Or and then Austin hasn't had any easy matchups in the UFC. We've gotten we've gotten little saying who he gets to fight, right? So we intentionally wanted to be a little bit pickier about this one, but we really didn't have to be, just because it's a stylistically, he's fighting a well-rounded, tough guy, but we like to fight. As far as like choosing the opponents, what do we base it off of? It's a little bit of everything, a little bit of everything. That their skill set, where they're at, wins, loss, just kind of all of it.
Yeah. And especially like you said, it depends on if you're a ranked fighter and stuff. Maybe Dana or somebody else, Mick or somebody else, gets involved more than just what you guys think too. So that's pretty much how the game plan goes. Now,
I mean, there's a lot of like, hey, here's who you're fighting next. And you're
exactly. You don't have much of a choice.
We get it. That's how it is.
Now, obviously, Shauna actually being one of your newest additions into the whole thing before the pandemic, and obviously she had by far the biggest upset of not only her career but in UFC history late last year. Tell us a little bit about being just kind of seeing that, knowing that, and kind of people just underestimating. Even a lot of people, including myself, won a lot of money off of just taking a chance on her, and that's why I thought was just so insane. So.
She's a stud, man. She belongs where she's at. She belongs in the UFC. She's a monster. She's got great skills. She's one of the best personalities in the room, man. That girl just brightens up every room she's in. She's got good energy, and she knows she scraps, man. She shows up, right? I don't coach her directly as far as cornering her, but I have the privilege of watching her train and watching the work that she's doing with the guys that coach her, and they're on the right track, man. She's an impressive girl. She's one to watch for sure.
Now, obviously, like you said, the great personality where, the post-fight, all she wants is a large pizza and Blue Moon. You already automatically know she has a great personality going into it. So.
Dude, if you can't get along with that girl, you're an asshole.
Yeah, exactly.
She is cool, man. She is cool. Yeah.
Now, as far as somebody like that, do you guys know, or maybe you don't know the story, but how did she actually come from Dallas all the way up to here? Do you know? Do you know the process?
I actually have no idea.
Yeah, so that's I always wondered too, because we were trying to find that mystery out. But
I think I actually heard a little interview or something once about it, but I don't remember, man.
Well, because I believe she was on The Ultimate Fighter, but I think Gaethje was one of the coaches, so maybe Trevor or somebody saw her ahead of time. So
that was going to be my guess. I would say the connection would have happened through the Gaethje connection and all that. But whatever it is, man, we're blessed to have her there. She's awesome, man. Yeah, she's awesome.
Now, obviously, a lot of people don't know, but we could kind of call it's kind of confusing what to call you. We could call you coach. We can call you professor. We could call you owner. You got so many titles. Now, tell us a little bit about High Altitude MMA.
My favorite title is Dad.
There you go. To two beautiful girls, my dad.
Man, that's the best title. But there's definitely a fatherly aspect to coaching. I definitely dig that part. I don't have any sons of my own, but I have lots of sons, if you know what I mean. Some of them are the same age as me. So High Altitude is the gym that Christian Allen and I own. We're an affiliate of Easton Training Centers, right? Which is just some of the best jiu-jitsu on the planet. And High Altitude has kind of a long history of making mixed martial artists. It was when I joined High Altitude as a student, it was owned by Nathan Marquardt, who was one of my mentors. And when I decided to hang up the gloves, the natural choice was to kind of take over that operation and purchase the business and grow it in the direction that Christian and I saw. And we've done that. I mean, the gym's doing really well. We have just an amazing student base. Our student body is large, and it's a big family. I'm so proud of the work we're doing there, what we're doing in people's lives, the staff we have, the amazing instructors that hold down the fort while Christian and I get to travel and help these athletes, chase their dreams. So it's a solid gym, man, for everybody, right? My goal is I always want High Altitude to be like a petting zoo full of lions. Like it's a safe place to bring your kids, but you get to bump shoulders with Curtis Blaydes while you're there.
Yeah, and especially some guy that we got to see his talents a couple weeks ago. Tell us a little bit about Corey Sandhagen and kind of how he got started and being from a kid to what he is now.
Yeah, Corey's incredible. And he's the journey, being able to just watch his journey has been a super impressive thing. I remember, you've probably seen the photos, but I remember when he was like a 16-year-old kid just walking through the door, playing basketball at Smoky Hill High School, picked up striking very fast. Christian is his mentor, and Christian is an incredible striker. In the practice room, I would say Christian's one of the most dangerous men that any of us ever knew, but Christian just didn't have the desire to compete and put it on the line, and the attention that winning brings and all that. Christian just isn't into that, but Corey can handle that, right? So Corey's this like 2.0. Watching him go off to college and study jiu-jitsu at the Boulder Academy of Easton Training Centers, watching him come back, his growth as a martial artist, the ups and downs, imagine being a kid and having coaches tell you, you're special, you're going to be a world champion someday. That's a good thing and a bad thing, because that's a lot to live up to.
A lot of pressure.
So he's had, we've watched him go through those ups and downs and just mentally trying to deal with all of that and, whatever. And then watching him, succeed and get signed and do well in the UFC, and watching him receive that beautiful gift that he received from Aljamain, right? Where he, that's what it was.
Blessing in disguise. Yeah.
I mean, it ain't even in disguise. It was a blessing, and he's been able to tap into something very special since then. And I mean, we're all just we're so proud of him, man. What can you say? We're so proud of him,
Yeah, and it was just so crazy too, because you saw some of the odds makers, and they were like, he's like a minus 170, 178, but then when he signed by KO and TKO in first round and stuff, it was like plus 350 and plus 550, and I ran up on that 550. I'm like, that's easy money as far as I'm concerned, because I just thought he was going to put him away. And was that kind of like the thing that you were guys kind of looking at with some types, where you've seen in the past where Brandon Thatcher ended up catching with guys with flying elbows when he had wrestlers trying to take him to the ground, and obviously you see like Masvidal versus Askren and stuff like that.
I think Corey, he's a special animal, man. I don't think he wants to overthink anything or get stuck or married to a certain plan. He's good everywhere, and it allows him to just kind of flow and turn his brain off and tap into that warrior mode, man, and just go, But I will say this, I did see some magic happen that night, because he was warming up with Christian and Carrington Banks, and he's moving around with Banks, and he threw a little jump knee. I was like, that's the one, right? And then went out and did it, shortly after that. So, there was definitely some magic. There was some really good warrior energy in the room that night, dude. You could feel it. It was something special was happening, and there was no doubt in my mind when he walked out that door that the ref was going to have to do his job, because somebody was going to get murdered if they didn't,
Yeah, and that's the thing too. It's just you watching the replay, and you could tell Frankie's going for a huge overhand right, and he just catches him straight on the chin and just out cold. And
I mean, he drew him in pretty good, right? Little pulls and stuff with his footwork, and he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he definitely set him up. Yeah,
he knows how to stand in the right place. That's for sure.
Especially with the leg kicks and stuff too. So as far as the evolution of leg kicks and stuff like that, is that kind of a thing that you guys teach him along the way, or is it just kind of a gig? Because you saw with Gaethje, where he always had the wrestling pedigree, but then he picked up the striking, and then obviously the leg kicks were there way before he was in the UFC. Is that kind of something that you guys teach him, or how does that usually work?
I mean, we were all leg kicking back when we were still fighting, right? With those low calf kicks and all that. It was just kind of considered dirty back then. But
or the kicks to the knees like John Jones.
Corey has some great guys that he works with, Banks, Christian, Ryan Hall, and all the coaches before that. And those guys are definitely teachers. But I'm of the belief that Corey comes up with a lot of the stuff himself, man. I don't, he's got great teachers, and they come up with all their stuff. But watching him, I definitely get the impression that he's just a very intelligent martial artist. And he knows knows his capabilities. He knows and he's just like he's having fun. He's having fun. He's trying to figure out how to be as dangerous as possible.
Yeah, and
that's
at the end of the day,
game. It's like this is the body God gave me. This is how much I weigh. How dangerous can I be? That kind of thing. Yeah.
And I think a major thing with all the COVID and no fans and stuff, I think the big thing is that you get to pretty much see the fighters where they're in a zone and they're basically, they have everything tuned out. They only hear a couple voices and stuff, but then they could actually literally do what they want. And there's really just no, coaching that could be had. They just do what they want to do.
Yeah. The COVID thing's been weird. Initially it was, there's an energy missing from the room without a crowd. We were in Abu Dhabi with Neil recently, and there was a small crowd, and it felt really good to be in front of a crowd. The crowd wasn't something that ever really occurred to me. When I was fighting, the crowd would make me really nervous, and I didn't really ever get to fight to my potential, But then as a coach, I didn't even really know the crowd was there. It was just like this nuisance because it was super loud. There's been some walkout. I did this walkout in Russia with Alistair that just I felt like I was in the center of the universe, dude. It was the crowd was so intense and awesome, right?
Yeah.
And I had one of my own walkouts in Ireland that was pretty cool.
But on the Connor card, I remember that.
Yeah. But outside of that, the crowd just kind of disappears. But then, being at the Apex with no crowd, it's weird, dude. You're like, what in the hell? And some of the guys really rely on that energy from the crowd, so they're having to find different ways to tap into that energy.
Yeah. And I think even like you said, even with the cheering and maybe the noise and stuff, you also don't get the boos and stuff to try to maybe bait a fighter into try to throw in strikes that they shouldn't and get caught. Too. So
it's definitely weird when it's that quiet. I swear to God, I got in the cage one time. I think it was Neil was sitting on the stool, and right as I'm about to start talking, as I sit down with him, I can hear Cormier. I can hear him. He's right there, and he says, "Let's see what Magnus Corner has to say." Literally says that, and then I'm like, I'm about to talk. And all of a sudden, you're
like, oh crap, the mic's on.
Millions of people are watching, right? That goes away, but it's weird. It's weird not having a crowd for sure.
Yeah, and I've heard actually other fighters in Abu Dhabi and even in the Apex Center where they've actually said that they heard kind of like shit talking by the announcers, and then they basically go after them after they win or lose, because they can hear the critiques.
Yes, they are literally fighting, and they can clearly hear the announcer saying, "Well, this isn't going well for so and so." They're fighting, and they can hear it. It's bizarre. It's bizarre.
Now, back in 2012, Derek Lewis actually ended up fighting here in Denver and for Paramount. Were you in the corner of Jeremiah Constant? Were you involved with that at all?
I was. Yep, I was in Jeremiah's corner.
So yeah, I remember.
Jeremiah took a shot. Lewis sprawled hard, punched Jeremiah in the back of the head about 5 times.
Yep.
He got the stoppage. It wasn't called illegal. It was totally illegal.
Totally illegal.
And Jeremiah ended up in the hospital. I think it was like 5 or 6 unanswered hammer fists to the back of the neck, to the base of the neck.
Base of the neck.
One of the shittier knockouts I ever saw.
Yeah, it was so crazy too, because I remember that whole night and how everything, and I wasn't too far away from the cage, but I kept on seeing. I'm like, what the hell? And then Jeremiah just went out, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? And then I just didn't know who was in the corner. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll ask Cody just in case, because I had a feeling that you might have been in that corner for that one. So
I was, I cornered Jeremiah quite a bit back then. Jeremiah was one of those guys who never really fully committed, never took the fight career seriously.
Yeah.
I believe he actually could have been a pretty amazing heavyweight or light heavyweight had we got some weight off him. Yeah. That guy is like, he's going to give anybody on the planet a shitty 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And then he just fades. If you go back and watch, he had a Bodog fight against Cain Velasquez a long time ago. Yeah, he put it on Cain for a minute or two, and then
and that was it. Cain woke up basically. Cain was being Cain basically. Yeah. Now somebody like that with Jeremiah, obviously, I think I remember a lot about his background and being able to cover him for so long. It seemed like he had also a job on the side too. Do you see that with a lot of fighters, whether they make it full time or part time? Is that pretty much how it goes? Is that they just are running out of money, or they need money, or they see more money? How's that usually work?
Yeah, you got to live, right? Especially
Yeah.
the more responsibilities you have. Jeremiah had a son out of town, right? Things like that. You got to take care of stuff. And some of the guys who try to graduate from a regular job and into full-time fighting too early, they end up with this financial burden over their shoulders and this pressure, potentially more pressure than a person needs going into a fight potentially, or and everybody's obviously motivated differently. Sometimes that could be a good motivator. I know sometimes that could be a bad motivator, right? Like you're not just thinking about doing your job. Like it's like, oh, if I don't win, I won't be able to pay my bills and things like that. So I encourage these guys to, they got to hustle, man. It's a lifestyle. When you decide you're going to be a professional fighter, you got to learn how to hold some mitts. You got to learn how to do some private lessons. You probably have to have a little side job. I mean, dude, when I first started, I was working at Denver Health as a security officer, working in the psych ward and in the morgue. I mean, it was rough. I got PTSD from that job, man.
Oh, I bet.
No shit. It was brutal. But without that job, I wouldn't have been able to chase the dream, because I was able to work graves and then train during the day. And
well, DGH is it's DGH is no joke either. You got, trauma one, you have gunshots, you have gangbangers showing up, you have people trying to retribution and stuff. There's just crazy stuff happens at the hospital. So I'm not surprised.
We were fighting every day there.
Yeah.
It was nuts, dude.
That's crazy. Now, even your background, just even growing up and going to high school and college, and then didn't you originally want to be like doing like cartoonists and stuff like that, drawing and everything like from the get-go?
Yeah. I went to the Art Institute of Colorado. I studied media arts there. My focus was like 3D modeling, broadcast graphics, things like that. I loved it. It was fun. Obviously fighting pulled me away. I remember at the end of school, it was like Rashad Evans was going into training camp, and everybody was going down to Albuquerque for 3 weeks or something. Yeah. And one of my professors, Don Long, a man that I really respect, he was kind of like, "What are you doing, man?" He's like, I think he said, "You can be a great animator or a great fighter." He's like, "But nobody gives a shit about like a okay fighter / animator." And I was like, "Oh,
you're like half and half. They don't want you to do."
Yeah, man. And so that kind of made the choice for me. That's when I jumped in with both feet before that. I just didn't know it.
Yeah.
And then, even in that circumstance, I slept on a couch for a long time, man. A buddy of mine, Arturo Fernandez, about that guy and his couch, I wouldn't have made anything. It's like it takes a lot to get a young fighter going.
Well, especially with your journeys over the years and stuff, do you ever stop and think of like, oh, look at the guys that you were training with, like Brendan Schaub, and see what he's doing, and look at these other guys that are just all over the world right now. And even myself covering you for so long and covering these fighters, and think to myself, I'm like, oh damn, all the college show and some of these guys I had in, and now they're going to be like future Hall of Famers, and sometimes UFC champions before we even saw them. It's just nuts. You ever thought about like writing a book or anything like that? Maybe like unsolicited stories, or
maybe,
do you ever watch?
Think about Cowboy, right, bro? Yeah. I mean, like Cowboy was a kickboxer. I remember guys being like, "Oh, he's just a kickboxer." And watching him on the early Ring of Fires and all that stuff, and just that was my homie, man. Like I hung out with that dude all, watching what he's done with the life he's made for himself, like. That's what I'm proud of, bro. He did, like a guy like Cowboy who did it his way against all the odds. He's a happy man. He has exactly what he wants. Like, hell yeah,
Yeah, beautiful children, a wife at home, a ranch, a training facility where he's helping out underprivileged kids and stuff like that. That's a hell of a life, right? I tell you.
Yeah, exactly, man. And like if you know his story, where he comes from, the bullying, all that stuff, man. That's got it work. That's some special stuff right there, dude.
Now, one story I've never been able to ask Cowboy himself. Is it true that his grandfather was like the fire chief down in the Springs or something like that? I heard like some odd story about his grandfather.
I don't know about the grandpa. I know his dad was a firefighter. I know that.
Okay.
I've met his dad once or twice. around a ton in the beginning, that
Mhm.
you know, but we saw him a lot later on. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know any details
About grandfather. Okay. Yeah, because for whatever reason, I heard a story that like his grandfather was the fire chief, but I wasn't 100% sure because obviously you see grandma all the time in the cage and out and stuff like that.
Yeah. So grandpa that was married to grandma, I
Mhm.
believe was a doctor. I believe.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Yeah, because I just always wanted to clear up that story because somebody said that. I'm like, I don't think so, but I'm not sure. So
And his grandma's the best, man.
yeah,
Right? I
isn't
mean,
she the sweetest lady?
dude, so awesome, man. It's always there every fight since the beginning. What a
Yeah.
special lady. Yeah.
Well, even
Yeah.
Cowboy himself, it's like if you go and meet him in person, whether you see him, if I was catching him for interviews or just seeing him in public, anyways, he's one of those guys that he kind of has the intimidation factor, but he's also a guy that he'll take pictures with you, he'll do anything with you. He's not going to obviously mess with you if you're a dick to him, but for the most part, most of those fighters are always down to earth and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's real, man. He's a fucking cowboy. He's
Yeah,
real, man.
exactly. He really is.
He's not trying to put on some show. He's as real as the dirt, you know?
Yeah. Now with Curtis Blaydes, tell us a little bit about him as far as his evolution and stuff. Him coming out from Chicago, was he brought in by Neil? Is that kind of where the connection with that is, or is it just kind of they show up and you're like, okay, let's go?
Yeah, I think it was mostly his old manager that put a lot of that together. I mean, we did have a brief conversation with him in Croatia, but it was just like
hi, yeah,
oh yeah,
basically.
you guys should come to Colorado, that kind of thing. We were out there with Bojan, but it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like any. I just think I think it was the guy that used to manage him, because that guy was a Chicago-based guy who knew Neil and a few other fighters, and there was definitely a squad of Chicago guys that came out and joined the team. So
yeah,
I think it was probably that, but at the time Curtis walked in the room, and a lot of the guys who were the head coaches at that time, they were very busy with like Dillashaw and all these athletes. And myself and Vinny Lopez were like assistant coaches in that room. And Curtis was kind of the first, Leister was the head coach at the time. And Leister was like, guys, I think you should work with him. Let's give this a try. And thank God that happened, man. Like for all three of us, for Curtis, for me, for Vinny, that has been one of the most special relationships that the three of us have. And inside and outside of the cage, man, it's just a real honor to be part of that, that tree. Yeah.
Now, obviously, Curtis being in the top 5 as far as the ranking and stuff like that. Now, did you ever have any interaction with Derek Lewis and his team after that, or are you just more concerned about Jeremiah at that time?
Yeah, we went straight to the hospital.
Yeah, that's I kind of figured. So
Jeremiah was jacked up, bro.
Yeah.
Didn't know where he was. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I kind of figured and stuff. So now, do you guys really, care about the back and forth there? It hasn't really hardcore or anything like that, but it seems like, Derek Lewis and him just kind of go at it. He doesn't really care about it. So
I think they're just having fun,
Yeah.
I think they're just having fun. Derek Lewis is a super funny guy, man. He's an entertainer. Yeah. He's an entertainer, right? Like he's a great entertainer, and he's a great entertainer for lots of reasons. He's funny. He says funny stuff. He's a very lucky guy, and he's had some great knockouts. And he's a great entertainer, and he's going to face a great athlete. Is the way I see it.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is like you said, there's been a lot of footage of Derek Lewis knocking out and stuff, but you also don't see the times where he was getting his butt whooped, possibly 3 rounds or even 4 rounds into it as well. So it's a kind of a thing where you see the highlight reels, but you really don't know the full story. And with Curtis, it's kind of been like the same thing as well. So is it just pretty much just see where it goes?
With Curtis, it's that in reverse, right? So with Curtis, they'll say, oh, he just lays on him and does nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, look, you want blood?
Yeah.
So do we.
Yeah.
We're not the game plan is not to lay on a person.
Yeah.
The game plan is to hold him down and make a gigantic bloody mess with his elbows. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And sometimes we run into some obstacles along the way. But there's no more violent way to finish a person than to elbow them in the face on the floor.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And so like this idea that Curtis is just going to wrestle and lay and be boring, that's selective memory, man. He's got some of the nastiest finishes we've seen came from Curtis.
Yeah.
And and everybody can come out and say, oh man, when he knocked out JDS, it was because his wrestling didn't work. And you know what? That was part of the plan, bro.
Yeah,
Like getting JDS to commit to wrestling so we could knock him out was the damn plan. Like
when he still knocked out a former heavyweight champion of the world. Let's not forget about that case too.
Yeah, man. I'll tell you what that was. Curtis made JDS think about wrestling so much that he forgot how to box. Yeah, that's what happened, bro. And that's what a devastating wrestler does to you. It's like if you and I agree to have a fist fight and I pull out a knife. Yeah. You don't have the luxury of ignoring the knife. Yeah, exactly. You're gonna move different. You're gonna stand different. You're gonna be less aggressive. That's what a level change is. That's what a takedown is. And all these guys that think that Curtis is just gonna wrestle people to the ground, he is always going to be a wrestler. That's what we say, right? And they automatically assume that means a million things. But always be a wrestler also means make you think about the takedown so he can knock your ass out. You know what I'm saying?
And not only that, I think like you said, and then Dana White says with the casual fans, I think it's mostly coming from the casual fans. Because if you ever watch Curtis's fight, especially in the last 3 years, he's not a lay on a guy and do nothing. He always advances. He never gets stood up by the ref. He always throws vicious elbows, even against his current teammate over him. So he doesn't mess around at all.
And when these guys get up, it hasn't occurred to the casual fans that we're letting them up. Yeah. Why would we let them up? Because the most exhausting thing you can do in a fight is get up. Yeah. Right. So I mean, it's the casual fans, man. They clearly don't understand MMA. They should be watching boxing or kickboxing. Actually, they should be watching MMA because we need fans.
Exactly. We'll take their money, but whatever. Yeah. But plus the criticism at the end of the day, they don't pay your bills anyway. So who really gives a crap what the casual fans say anyway? So that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, we're gonna keep doing what we do, man. I mean, the kid walked in the door, a phenomenal wrestler with 2 left feet, no striking, and Vinny Lopez poured his heart and soul into that kid for 5 years, and he has phenomenal striking. And even though you guys have only gotten glimpses of it so far in the fights, that's how it goes, right? Things translate slowly when you're standing in front of 10 million people, right? But via a camera. But if people could see what we get to see on a weekly basis in practice, he has some of the most dynamic footwork and striking of any heavyweight ever. Ever, bro, right? And it's just translating kind of one fight at a time.
And even Derek Lewis said in his media conference this afternoon, he pretty much said that he's not expecting for him just to take him down at will and land him with ground and pound or anything like that. He expects all of them. He expects them to stand up and strike with them. He expects them to literally getting, Derek tired and doing whatever the hell he wants with him. So even Derek knows he ain't no fool. He knows exactly what he's getting himself inside the cage.
Derek's not dumb.
No.
Right? We do a lot of talk about wrestling because we want you thinking about wrestling, and Derek knows it. He's not stupid. Yeah. It's gonna be a fight, right?
Yeah. And then also, with the COVID and stuff, it's so weird that I guess maybe a lot of the fans and people don't really know how the testing and stuff works to go with. How does it get to that point where you guys are already in, you're already settled and stuff like that, and then it seems like some of you guys, whether it's Ian or a lot of these other fighters, they don't have symptoms. And then all of a sudden they get positive like Friday morning or Saturday morning. It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah, I don't know, man. You tell me, right? That same week, I tested positive that week that Curtis failed for that one. I tested positive 17 days before I got on the plane and flew to Vegas. That's right. Insane. So 17 days before I was positive and I was sick. Right. Yeah. 7 days before leaving. So 10 days after I got sick, passed my test, no symptoms. Yeah, okay. 10 days later, fly to Vegas, fail the test again. How does that work?
Yeah. It
you know
doesn't
what I mean?
make any sense.
Yeah, exactly. And then also, we had a few other people. They actually got it here and then got sick when we got home, or got sick when I think they had to drive home or something. So and then Curtis definitely caught COVID in Las Vegas. There's no doubt about it, right? He passed his test before he left. I'm guessing probably the airport on the way here or something, right? Yeah. Because then he passed his test when we got here, because we take one test before we leave, one test when we get here, and then failed the fight day test or whatever it was. I don't remember. But then he went and stayed in the house here in Vegas and was very sick.
Yeah.
You know,
And that's what I never understood too. Even myself, I ended up testing positive like the first week of December, barely had any symptoms at all, nothing. And then almost like 2 weeks later, then you're finally negative. And then people are like, oh, well, you can still stay positive for 90 days. And like, how the hell is that even possible? It's like, how do they expect like you guys, whether it's NFL, NBA, but it's even more difficult with you guys because you guys have to plan a certain amount of time where you can't really move that back. You either move it back or you just cancel it altogether.
Yeah. Anytime that I have a medical question, I call Dr. Chad Pressmeck, right? He's like the Broncos neurosurgeon. He's the Rocky Mountain Spa. He owns Rocky Mountain Spine. He owns Resilience Code, all that stuff. That's my buddy.
Yeah.
And I called him and I was like, how do we pass a test and then fail a test? And he basically said that there's a difference between shedding and detoxing. So you shed for 10 days, but you could detox for 90 days. That was the thing. And when a person that's detoxing is not contagious, something like that. But I mean, you can't blame the UFC, right? They got a bunch of lawyers telling them what to do, man.
Yeah.
And they're trying to keep us all working. They're doing everything in their power to keep us working.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, the government controls the UFC. It still goes through a commission, whether you like it or not. So, the UFC and Dana can only do a certain amount of things. So.
Yeah, they got to follow all those rules, man.
Yeah.
Look who just walked in. There's the man.
Oh, there's the man right there.
I'm doing an interview about you. Travis Ingle, he's a Colorado reporter. Yeah. He said, "What's up?
What's up, Curtis?"
he left his Rick and Morty blanket in our room, so
he had to snag it.
He's just collecting. He's just collecting it.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Best of luck to you, bro. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
So tell us about some of the phenoms or maybe some of the up and comers at high altitude that you could tell us about that maybe don't have the spotlight or the kind of the bringing up and stuff that you're seeing.
So, we have, so I would say, I would call it elevation, not high altitude, right? Just because high altitude is like the farm where Christian and I grow some of the fighters that eventually, come and train with the elevation squad. So we're learning all those skills there, but it's, in an effort to not run 2 fight teams, basically.
Yeah.
Amateurs and stuff will compete out of high altitude, and then eventually, high altitude, Vital, Easton training centers, all these different places.
Yeah.
And then we kind of grow them, and then they become elevation guys. Yeah.
Now, how about some elevation guys that you see?
Lots of great up and comers. I mean, the one that I would highlight is Zach. How do you say Zach's last name? Paunga. That's what I thought. Zach Paunga.
Okay, yeah.
He's fighting with the LFA. That is definitely a man to watch. I mean, super impressive guy. But the room's just full of studs, man. I mean, studs
and champions too, as we saw with Kamara and stuff like that. Now, what do you guys think of that? Like when you guys get it's pretty much like you said, it's like a zoo, and it's almost full of different lions and rhinos and everything like that, where they're going one-on-one. How important is it to have somebody like Usman, a champion and a guy that's defended, hasn't defended a belt, or defended a lot, but just to be able to have somebody of his pedigree in that gym, how well does that help the other fighters?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, it helps the fighters tremendously, right? They fighters get motivated, just like any of the rest of us. So to have a champion in the room, right, is incredible. For us, it's always this thing of like, we want to make sure that they're not like an asshole. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter how talented a guy is, if he comes in, he's got a big head and he's acting like a dick, we're gonna ask him to leave. But we've been I'll be on a second. We've been asked. I mean, we've just been very careful about that at Elevation, like not letting any organization's going to have drama and stuff like that. But we do our best to keep the assholes out, if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, you got to get along with everybody, man. We're trying to do this like big family thing. So like, even Alistair had a reputation of not being a team player, but I mean, it couldn't be further from the truth. He's one of the best guys in the room, man. He makes friends with like the young amateurs, and just a really like really special guy. Usman's cool, man. Sorry, I'm shutting the door.
Oh no, you're fine.
Well, we're out there watching this Spanish TV show called 30 Coins. It's crazy, bro. It's like this priest like fighting demons and stuff, but it's in subtitles, so we're all getting smarter today.
Is it like Telemundo or is it like YouTube
HBO.
or something? Oh, it's on HBO.
Dude, it's on HBO, but it's just a Spanish show. It's really good though.
That's great.
But Vinny's the only one that speaks Spanish in the room, so the rest of us are really having to read. You know?
You have to do the subtitles quickly.
Yeah. But Usman's cool, man, and he's a beast. He takes care of his training partners. He's respectful. I mean, nothing but good stuff to say about that guy. And his fight, bro. I mean, like he got cracked a couple times in that first round, right?
Yeah, he did.
Dude, what you saw was a champion. Champions come back from that.
Yeah.
That's not a skill thing. That's that's a grit. That's a heart. You can't teach that, dude. You can't teach that.
No, you can't.
You have that or you don't.
Yeah.
Right?
And we saw that too. It was like, you look back and Coach T after the first, he's like, use your damn jab, use your jab. This is what got you here. This is why you're the champion. And then for him to possibly be in daze a little bit, then he just takes control over the second. It just, like you said, it's a different mindset and it's just the way it is. Yeah.
What a smart call from Trevor, right?
Yeah.
But dude, Trevor's the king of that, bro. Trevor is the king of smart calls. You can look at so many fights over the past, however long Trevor's been doing it. You go back to Marquardt, you go with
Shane
right now, Carwin, Schaub, any of these guys, and you will hear Trevor doing that. You will hear Trevor making these adjustments that win fights.
Yeah, and he's so calm and collected too. That's what's crazy about it too. He's just so quiet and he's calm, but he's direct to the point, and they know exactly what to do at that instant time too.
Yeah, man, you give Trevor a guy like Usman, it's like playing video games with cheat codes, bro. It's just
exactly.
Like on a different level, bro.
Well, it reminds me so much, and being so similar and seeing those guys in the same room together, it reminds me of Greg Jackson. Greg Jackson was kind of the same way too. So, and I guarantee that's probably where you learned a lot of it too.
And those two spent a lot of time together, man.
They did.
The
I was there.
GSP. Rashad. They shared a lot of coaching together. Yeah.
Now give us
Greg's the man, dude.
Yeah, Greg is the man. He's one of the nicest dudes on the planet too. So
I'll tell you what, man.
His gym.
Greg inspired me. Right, the place that I coach from is highly influenced by my years of watching Greg. Greg was one of my coaches, and the creativity, the concepts, right? He wasn't one of these guys that I came from a place where you would learn a move, and the move was considered legitimate or not based on who taught it to them and the lineage of it or something like that. And Greg didn't give a shit about that. Greg studied MMA and came up with cool ideas and had guys that trusted him, and that trust and those ideas turned into so many world champions. Greg is a very special man.
Yeah. And just the empire that he's built in Albuquerque, where you see it's kind of in this. What's up, Curtis? What's up,
Cody? He's the only one who knows
how to work. No, you're fine. No, we wanted to make sure that we just got his shout outs, and then he could definitely go and watch his show with you.
He wants me to fix the TV.
Yeah, that works. No, just give us some shout outs. Just tell us about the gym and everything like that. And if people are interested and possibly coming from other states, they're coming out to Colorado, tell us about it.
Yeah, so I guess my plugs would be there are a lot of great gyms in Colorado, right, that work with this team that produce Curtis Blaydes and that produce the athletes that we deal with. I would start with strength conditioning, right? You want strength conditioning, depending on the part of the city you're in. Vital Strength and Fitness, Orlando Performance. Those are the teams that we use. They're phenomenal.
Yeah.
Obviously, do your research, call in. Various gyms have COVID restrictions and things like that. We're doing our best to deal with all of that. But when it comes to jiu-jitsu, they're look
Eastons.
up, figure out what part of town you're in and find your local Easton training centers, right?
They're all over.
Muay Thai as well. They have an outstanding Muay Thai program. I own High Altitude Martial Arts. Of course, I'm going to plug that gym. The gym that built Corey Sandhagen. I'm just kidding.
Hey, you're joking, but it really did. If you think about it,
you know what I'm
come somewhere.
We're doing very special things there, and all of that. Youth programs with us, with Easton's, with all that, man. And then fighters, we're always taking applications at Elevation. We're always looking for the next person that's going to add to the room and stuff. And you can reach out to us on social media and we'll start a conversation and see how that goes.
Cool. Thanks very much for your time, bro. And tell Curtis, I guess he's part of the ranks as far as building it up and getting part of the whole team. So wish him best of luck Saturday night, and also Shauna as well.
Cool. Yep. Yeah, good talk, bro.
You too. Thanks, bro. Appreciate it. Special thanks to Cody Donovan, birthday man tonight. Unfortunately, he ended up taking a loss with Curtis Blaydes, being in Curtis Blaydes' corner. Curtis Blaydes ends up getting knocked out in the second round by Derek Lewis in the main event. Out in Las Vegas, Nevada at the UFC Apex facility. Unfortunately, a bad night, but it was great to catch up with Cody Donovan, somebody that I've known for over a decade, and a guy that not only is a former UFC fighter himself, but a man that's taught many over Colorado, also New Mexico, and just been a really great help in our Colorado MMA community. So unfortunately, bad news, but the good news is it ends up becoming some bonus time for Derek Lewis as he gets a $50K bonus over for the knockout victory over Curtis Blaydes tonight. You also had Chris Stalkus, who ends up getting the TKO victory over Alexei Olenek, and then you got Tom Aspinall getting the rear naked choke victory over former UFC heavyweight champion Andrei Arlovsky. And then also in the prelims, $50K bonus goes to Ayman Zahabi, who gets the victory tonight as well. So some huge bonuses getting handed out. Usually you don't see that many, 4 of them, getting $50K bonuses, but it was a good night and a lot of finishes. So that's what ends up happening. We had 2 fights that ended up getting dropped out. One was because of Cornerman getting the COVID-19 positive test right before the fight. And then one fighter that ended up having crazy back spasms before he was supposed to walk out to the octagon. So crazy night for sure. Ends up giving a victory for Derek Lewis at a plus 350. That plus 350 is the second largest in a main event fight, to only Michael Bisping getting the TKO victory over Luke Rockhold at UFC 199. So obviously Bisping's first ever title win against Luke Rockhold ends up going with the plus 400. And then tonight you got the underdog in Derek Lewis, who gets the KO victory at a plus 350 with a devastating right uppercut to Curtis Blaydes that puts him out cold, and then unfortunately finishes them off with a couple unnecessary right hands on Curtis Blaydes as he was already out cold. So we appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. We'll see if we could do some more interactions. We're still kind of working out some technical difficulties and getting everything ready, but hopefully we'll be able to get more more interactive things with comments, or as far as people chiming in and giving their thoughts of the fights for next week's. Next week's main event will be Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Cyril Gane in a heavyweight battle, just very similar tonight. And you just never know if maybe the winner of a Rozenstruik and Gane could end up facing Derek Lewis next. You just never know how everything plays out. So next week we'll have the pre-fight show at 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We'll probably end up having a couple guests. You have to check out our social media to be able to find out who our guests for next week is. But I'm just guessing that if you look at the card, there seems to be a couple Factory X fighters. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get a couple of Factory X fighters for the pre-show and possibly even the post-fight show too. But I kind of want to leave the post-fight show for a couple things I got up my sleeve, maybe a couple guests. It could be even a former UFC champion too. I'm trying to work on. So we'll see what everything pans out with that. But we appreciate it. Thank you very much for taking your time out on the post-fight show. You'll be able to see the Burt Watson interview that we did for the post-fight show on YouTube, as well as the interview that we ended up doing earlier in the week with Cody Donovan on the post-fight show. So appreciate it. Guys, have a great weekend. Enjoy it. Hopefully the snow melts by tomorrow if you guys are watching it from Colorado. Hopefully everybody is all taken care of in Texas within the next week or so. And, hopefully we could get some power and make sure everything's all good down there. But best of luck to everybody. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you guys next Saturday afternoon at 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time for the UFC pre-show with Jairzinho Rosenstrike taking out Cyril Gane. You guys have a great night. Bye.